Hello and welcome back to Good Game Nation, where we bring you all things TCG. My name is Preston and I'm here with Sam.
Hello, it's me, Sam.
Today we're bringing you a good one, and I think our background here is going to give you a little bit of a hint as I lead into. We have most of the cards from the Navy deck. I think we don't know counts on what they're going to be, but I believe Shonen Jump released it as one of its ads this week, and Nami Peace jumped on it on Twitter and made a layout for the world. So we're just looking at all of our starter deck. I think it's seven um, Navy cards.
It's very exciting to have this deck. We'll switch over to Dev. Both Nami and Dev are going to be down in the descriptions down below. And yeah, let's get into what the black deck's going to do, some of the cards that we think are going to be very impactful, and what we think it'll do for the meta. Starting with the Kaino. Kaino is once per turn, cost 3. You may trash a card from your hand and KO up to one of your opponent's characters that costs 0. My initial thought, especially after quickly reading all of the cards, a lot of them stuff discards cards from your hand.
Yeah.
A Kaino does. Then Garp, probably the biggest killer on the Navy deck, is a discard as well. Even Hobby, the 1-drop KO that KO zeros, cost a card from your hand. And there's not a lot of draw power. The only card that I believe lets you draw anything is Great Eruption, but it's a trade-off. It's a 1-for-1.
Right.
That is probably the biggest concern for me looking at the deck right away.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have a searcher.
No searcher.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, only a couple of the starter decks have anything that search. I think green is
Green's
the
the
main one that I think of because Jewelry Bonnie is disgusting. Um, but this is a pretty standard starter deck.
Yep.
They do have a lot of discard,
Yep.
which if you think about how the Navy operates, they will like look some cards and some characters are disposable, like your infantry troops are disposable, so discarding a card from your hand kind of makes sense as a thematic. Uh,
Brutal. Brutal. That's a
yeah,
brutal way to look at it.
yeah, and
um,
especially some of these characters, like when we were, if you check out our news video, um, there's a couple characters where like, why are they here? Like with Full Body, and then
I love Full Body.
Momonga.
Yeah, that
Uh,
guy. That guy. We had to Google his name.
I don't know T-Bone either. Like these are characters that are in this arc that don't stick around, to my knowledge, really. Full Body is like a reoccurring theme with like a cover art story, right?
With
But
him and Django,
yeah,
yeah.
uh, and Django's a fun character from the Usopp arc that I think is nice to see here, but also super not important. So if you just are discarding like your vanillas with these effects, which discarding your vanilla is not always the best choice because they generally have stronger attack powers for their drops,
you know,
um, for like their drop cost. But it kind of works thematically. But yeah, you're right. When you're discarding a lot and you're going to need cards for counter, um, it does get dangerous when you're um, pitching those away for effects that you need to play this deck.
right. It'll work out if you're able to just keep clearing the board. If you can keep clearing and you have nothing to attack with, you don't need anything to counter in your hand with because they have nothing on the board. That could be the angle here. But there's some really exciting cards. We've talked about the Smoker before on the channel. The Smoker card is not only is he 5K 5-drop 7K, which is a vanilla strength, which is awesome. He's got an amazing effect that is going to cause a ton of pressure to your opponent. So this Smoker card, for whatever we do, wherever we move forward, this card is very good, and he's definitely the new power gauge for 5-drops for sure.
Yeah.
I really like seeing another field card.
Yes.
It's very exciting to see. It's a pretty good effect by all counts. I don't know how many we would play in a modified version of the deck, but it's definitely nice to see more event field cards. I hope we don't get 2 a set. I hope we get a couple more here and there. I would love to see a couple, like blue get one, more options out there.
Yeah.
But it's very exciting to see that another field card.
Yeah. And other than like game mechanics, like field cards, I'm excited to get more of. I'm assuming I hope we get a Saba Odi at one point. I hope we get an Amazon Lily at one point. That would be super cool. Wano would be super cool. Um, but who knows what they're gonna do with it? It might be super specific. I think all of them are very specific on how you can use them and what decks you can use them in. So they're not going to be as popular as cards that you can throw in any red deck.
It's a bummer because I feel like they have an opportunity to do more field spells, especially after they did the Sunny. After doing the Sunny, you open up the world. You could just do just boats. You could do Lost Submarining. Just give Heart Pirates a little thing. You could just do so many little things. It doesn't have to be a set location like Alabasta or whatever it may be.
That's true.
So I just hope to see more because I think it's definitely a unique mechanic, especially without a way to remove event cards as well. It's an interesting way to play the game. Thinking about what this will do for the meta, 3 drops we talked about in our news video, if you didn't see that, are in the most immediate danger. Hempo plus Suzaku or Hina plus Suzaku immediately kills all 3 and 4 drops. So if your deck is based around those, you're already in some trouble, I would say. Cards like Nico Robin are in my head immediately. It's the first one that popped in is in immediate trouble. She's just gonna get popped instantly.
Yeah, and Kabi is another killer of zero cost
Uh-huh.
cards on play. So you could definitely do any of these minuses into Kabi for 1 instead of Sasaki for 3.
Yep.
um, which is kind of an interesting approach for your leader to have a character card that kind of seems better than the leader effect, right?
Yep, and then we go one step up even more. We go straight into Garp, who is an active main effect, so he just has to be on your board. I wouldn't even attack with this guy. All your reductions, and then he kills things cost 4 or less. So we actually don't even need to reduce. He's straight up killing your 1 or 4 drops, your 3 or 4 drops. And then if you reduce with things like Hina, you're able to kill 8 drops. So we're looking at something that can actually really easily kill Kid. We're looking at things that kill 7 drops really easy as well if you have Hempo instead. So we might end up using Suzaku's leader effect with cards like Garp. A lot of destruction, a lot of things like this. Yeah, it's definitely a promising thing going forward, especially if there's a way to draw decent cards, so we have more resources to pitch. This deck could be even more strenuous.
Yeah. And I think the one good thing, well, for people playing against this deck, is this starter deck is pretty light on counter. Kind of like red is pretty light on counter for their starter deck.
Yeah, that's
Unlike
true.
green that has everything except for its blocker is counter. This
Mm-hmm.
deck doesn't. It's similar to red in that sense where your big guys don't have counter. Even your Hina in this deck doesn't have counter, which is kind of disappointing. Um, but you're going
Yeah.
to have a few less counters. So if you're able to play a little bit longer and get your big drops in, even if you're thinking starter deck versus starter deck, if you're playing purple and you hit your Kaido, your black deck isn't going to be able to counter out of powered up Kaido or something like that. Um,
No, I would fully agree. I like thinking about how you said sacrificial. How a lot of these cards are to Suzaku are sacrificial. We always get 2 different modes or 2 different styles of way of playing in the first. At least the first set. That's how we did. It. Blue had Barrack Works and then the Warlord mechanic. So it had 2 mechanics. So I'm wondering if we're also going to get another way to play black as well somewhere down the line, or down this set as well. Maybe a pump side, maybe a little more boosting, maybe
yeah.
someone from like Kuzan or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I might be exaggerating on the low counter count because full body, Helmeppo, and the 4-drop 6K vanilla all have counter also. So I might be exaggerating a little bit, but based off of card dev, it seems like you're a little light. And those are all 1Ks, I believe. So it's still kind of scary when you think of counter power. Uh,
Plus the counts of the actual deck. So a lot of these cards are going to be lower. We're not only going to get maybe 1 or 2 smokers in the theme deck. I don't remember how many super rares come in them. I think it's just 1. Garp's also a super rare, so we're probably only going to get 1 or 2 in the deck as well. Hina we'll probably get 4 of, but I think Hina is probably the best on play effect. So I don't think this is too big of a problem to run a high Hina count. So I'm excited about the deck. I think the mechanics are very interesting. I think I think decks that play cards just to play them and not have an immediate effect will have trouble. Cards that don't generate immediate value, I think Garp really punishes those cards.
Right.
Thinking about the law lets you play a card for free, so not the law. The kid lets you play a 3-drop for free, so it's not terribly negative. But this Garp plus Hina combo would easily kill uh, stuff like
Right.
that. So it's very interesting going forward. What's going to be the staples because Garp really puts changes of plans in a lot of these current meta decks.
Yeah, and the other thing to think of is this deck like playing Pokemon? Pokemon, you don't have a lot of opponent interaction.
Right.
So when you're playing in Pokemon, you just do your turn and then your opponent does their turn. This deck has a lot of you're doing a lot of stuff on your turn. The
Yep.
only thing you have to react is your counters. But like it feels like you're going to be doing a lot of stuff on your turn and then just waiting
Maybe.
to see if they're able to play out of it or something. I don't know. It kind of feels weird with like the minus effects only being on your turn, especially with
Mm-hmm.
your counter that can KO stuff with low cost. Um,
I
this
think.
is just the starter deck, though. They
Yep.
could have persistent effects.
Yep. A
Um,
persistent effect would absolutely just change this deck for the worse. A persistent effect that lowers your character cards makes cards like Impact Wave just brutal. Plus, like you said, this is the starter deck. We're going to see probably a lot of black cards in this set because they are a set behind, so they're probably going to be more than the first set for any card. Any more persistent effects, any more draw power, any cards that can kill without discarding a card are cards to highlight immediately.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I think that'll do it for our early review of the Navy Suzaku led starter deck. Let us know down in the comments or description or the comments what you guys thought. What's your favorite card? We lightly talked about Smoker, but please hype up Smoker in our comments. We love it over here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like One Piece TCG content, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Later.